episode number 268 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about how you can access nature to help your fertility. And yes, 100%, nature synchronizes with our bodies, and nature is kind of like our mothership. So when we follow nature, we allow it to synchronize our bodies, then we are able to come back to our own nature and vitality. So to learn more about this, stay tuned. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. So if you've been following my podcast, you may have heard me talk once or twice, or maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times about how amazing nature is. And really it is one of the core principles of Chinese medicine, because we do talk about elements, and then you can also see the yin and yang really superimposed into every aspect of nature. And ultimately, it is because we are nature. And this is why TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, has been around for thousands of years and doesn't seem to go out of style, because it bases its concepts and its methods on nature. And understanding nature is really understanding ourselves. When we understand ourselves and our own nature, then we're able to get to a place or access a point of healing where our bodies naturally love to thrive, which is when they are in their normal rhythms. Typically nowadays, especially in modern day times, we have a lot of things that take us out of nature, like artificial light. There's many things and factors that can throw us out of nature and out of sync with our own nature. And that typically takes us out of our natural ability to also heal ourselves, which is one of the reasons why Chinese medicine works so well when you're doing acupuncture and you're also implementing balance in the body. Then it's able to create self-healing and regulate itself. And how you start to see that, of course, reflects in reproductive health. So reproductive health always reflects overall health. So overall health is the foundation. And there are certain ways that we can harness nature. Typically, over time, when we have a lot of artificial means and artificial food and artificial light and artificial times, our own circadian rhythm gets thrown off over and over and over again, it becomes almost like an assault to the body. And that eventually really takes us out of our natural rhythms. So I'm going to actually discuss 4 different ways you can synchronize or use nature and harness it in order to improve your own reproductive health. And some of these actually in studies have been shown to impact reproductive health. And I'll talk about it, and sometimes indirectly, by other things, other means, and I will discuss more in detail so you will know what I'm talking about. But I also am aware that some people listening to this right now may live in New York City or in the city, and they're not really able to access some of the things that I am going to be talking about. So don't even worry, because I have you covered. I have some other ways, though they might seem artificial, but we can utilize artificial things to our benefit as well. And I will explain. So all of this will start to make sense as I progress in this episode. It is very exciting to me because I remember growing up, my grandmother always talked to me a lot about natural medicine. She always talked to me about food, and she always talked to me about how important it is to connect with nature, and how even when you're looking at something really beautiful, a scenery, it's really healthy for your body. And I remember her saying that, and it made sense to me, although I didn't really know how to make sense or understand where the logic came from specifically or how it worked. But it did make sense to me, because when I would go on vacations or I would get to look outside and saw a body of water, it did have an impact on how I felt. And typically, how you feel is a reflection of how your body feels. And that is the way that the body communicates with your mind to let you know if things are right or things need to get changed. And it will motivate you. And that's why a lot of imbalances eventually motivate people to make changes. And that you can thank your incredible intelligent design and how your body knows to get your attention. So let's begin with number one. And number one is sunlight. Sunlight is so important in anchoring our own rhythms. It is how our body responds to its own cycle. So you'll notice, and this is a great example, when you're moving to a different place that has different time. So you're moving from one rhythm of time, one cycle of time, and your body starts to have its own internal clock. And that internal clock typically will synchronize with your environment. That is why when you go to a different time zone or you're flying to a different place, you'll feel jet lagged and you'll start to have a lot of different symptoms. And those symptoms are actually letting your body know something's off. And one of the ways that you can bypass that or get more synchronized quicker is by sunlight. So your body needs to recognize light in order to anchor your circadian rhythm. And that circadian rhythm does impact your menstrual cycle. And in fact, having shift work for certain women who have had to do overnight shifts, and when their circadian rhythm gets disrupted, it actually impacts their fertility health as well. So it's actually been shown that people who do shift work or like overnight shifts, it does compromise fertility, unfortunately. There are certain ways around it. And if you do have to do that, and I know that sometimes you can't really get away from it, it's important to at least get sunlight on days that you are not in that night shift time so that you are able to anchor back to that time, or at least darken the room when you are sleeping so that it mimics nighttime. And there are certain ways around it, but ideally it would be better to have a normal daily consistent rhythm and consistent time, because it does take a lot of energy for the body to move back and forth and adjust. If you happen to be in a place where you don't always get the sunlight early in the morning and you're in winter and it's hard to get sunlight and you're indoors and you're working, something that you can do, or you're in New York City, this is always something that I've given my clients in New York City, this is the advice I give them, is you can order a light box. And a light box is basically something that mimics the sunlight, and it helps with things like seasonal affective disorder, and it can actually work on your circadian rhythm. So you can have the light box not look directly at it, but have it sitting on the side of your desk towards you, almost like it's a window. And that can compensate for not having as much light or being in winter. And I personally had seasonal affective disorder when I was in New York, and I really respond a lot to the sun. So having that light box can really make all the difference. So it is an alternative. Another thing with the circadian rhythm is that there have been associations or links with circadian rhythm disruption when your circadian rhythm is not functioning optimally. And then there is a connection between that and menstrual cycle disorders, or sometimes PCOS. Interestingly enough, when I had issues with my period not coming on time years ago, for like many years, during that time, I myself had issues going to sleep early enough. Like I'd have a really hard time going to sleep, and I'd always go to sleep really late, and I'd always be exhausted in the morning. And if you left me to my own devices, I would just sleep in till 2 or 3. Even on other days when I was in college and I did all-nighters, I mean, I would sleep till 6 p.m. But that's obviously not always, like, it wasn't something that typically happened, but my clock just did not know where I was. And I was definitely off with that. And it also impacted how I felt, my emotions, depression, all of that. And it's so amazing how our own internal rhythm and clock can impact so many things. So it's kind of like if you have a clock, I always compare it to the second hand and the minute hand and the hour hand. If the second hand, which let's compare the second hand to sunlight, a daily 24-hour cycle, if the second hand is thrown off, then yes, it's going to impact the minute hand and the hour hand. The hour hand, let's compare that to like the 30-day cycle or like the 28-day cycle of your period. So every aspect of our cycle matters, and every aspect of our internal cycle impacts everything. And that will typically also impact the time of day you poop. And there's certain times where that can become more regulated as well, where you have it at a certain time of the day and your body knows, and your body does like that rhythm. And yes, it's important to have some element of variety for sure, but there are certain things that you would benefit from having as a regular pulse. So that is number one, sunlight. It's so important. And then also at night, tapering down the artificial light and the device light and all of that, because that will confuse your internal rhythm as well, because it's going to think that nighttime is actually daytime because it's getting that blue light. So that is really, really important. And then also with sunlight, because there's just so much, when you get sunlight, especially early in the morning, and if it's in a warm place or a climate, you want to do it early in the morning because it's a safer type of light. It doesn't have as much UV rays. So it's a little lower, it's a little safer, and that's the time where you're really able to absorb the nutrients as much as possible from the sunlight. And that also induces cellular melatonin. So not only is it good for your circadian rhythm, but cellular melatonin is different than the melatonin that helps you to fall asleep at night. It's the same melatonin, but it's used differently in the body. When it's in the cells, it acts as an antioxidant, which is incredible. It's incredible for your body. It's anti-aging, and think egg health, sperm health. It's really, really great for the body. You want that natural antioxidant. So it's very regenerative and good for the body. So that's like another incredible aspect of sunlight that can help your fertility health. So number 2 is nature walks. Walking in nature can calm your nervous system. A calm nervous system allows the body to heal. Think about how rejuvenative it is to get sleep. When your body is able to rest, it is able to repair itself. It's able to balance hormones, and a calm nervous system can really impact hormones and the balance of natural hormones. And you're also getting fresh oxygen, which is incredibly chi enriching. So chi is life force vitality. When you're getting fresh oxygen, I always say the best time to do exercises or breath exercises and pranayama. Pranayama is another word for breathing exercises or breath control from ancient India. It's part of the yogic tradition. And there are tons of exercises that you can do to really expand the capabilities of the lungs and to also be able to take in that fresh oxygen, utilize it in the body. And I always suggest if you are going to do breathing exercises, it's preferable to do them outside, whether it's warm or cold. However you can go outside and do that is really, really important. So that is definitely something that I highly recommend. Another great thing that happen on nature walks is you get to listen to the sound of leaves, and you get to hear the sound of water, hopefully, because that's just so nice, and sounds of birds. So the sounds of nature synchronize the body to a state of calm, and it actually does impact the mind when you are exposed to sounds of nature. It is naturally calming, and a lot of meditative music uses sounds of nature and sounds of birds or sounds of water, and it has a very calming effect on the mind. And I always say it's almost like when I listen to birds and I'm meditating outside, I feel like they're tuning my energy literally. And so one alternative to nature walks, if you are not able to go out and do that, you can listen to you can find this on YouTube or, Spotify or any like music app that you use, and you can find meditative music, or Pandora sometimes has that. And you can find music that has sounds of nature and listen to those sounds. So I had one patient that specifically really connected to water and to the beach. And she said just throughout her whole life, she always felt really calm at the beach, but she had a hard time meditating. So I suggested for her, just find a YouTube video with the sounds of the ocean and just listen to that. And so she started listening to that, and it actually impacted her because that was specifically something that triggered peace in her mind and brought her back to positive memories. She was able to find that and that be the tool to get her almost like induce that state. It's almost like an anchor. In hypnotherapy, we always find an anchor. Sometimes an anchor is bringing yourself back to a state of mind or something that puts you in that state of mind, or something that you can remember, a time where you felt a certain way that's positive. And then using maybe a mudra, like a hand gesture, a specific one that you keep doing over and over again. They call that an anchor. And then you would use that in a time of need once you really like get that software in your mind. So similar to that is our sounds, or any really like stimulus that brings you back to a certain state. So using that something that calms you down or makes you feel good is a great way to get yourself quicker into a state of peace, especially in times that you need it. So the third way you can harness nature is earthing. And that's huge because there have been a lot of positive studies that show that earthing can lower inflammation in the body, which is huge, huge, huge when it comes to reproductive health and really to overall health. Inflammation can be something that really takes a lot of energy in the background, and it also is something that can impact your gut health. It can impact so many systems. It can also impact your cells' health, and that impacts your egg cells and even sperm. So it's important to lower inflammation when you're trying to conceive for men and women. Earthing also helps with your circadian rhythm. It helps with better sleep and calming your nervous system. It is really an important aspect of healing. What earthing is, in case you have never heard of it before, and actually if you want to learn a little more, I would highly suggest, and you can find this for free on YouTube, looking up the Earthing movie, and you can find it for free online. Highly recommend it. It's a documentary, and it explains exactly how earthing works. And they have shown in studies that wounds heal faster. It really gets the body's healing process to move much faster, and lowering inflammation, like I said, it's just incredible. And some people even believe that you can get sick without earthing. So it's something that is interesting because nowadays we only have like rubber soles that we're walking on, whereas back in the day, they used to have shoes that were not rubber, like if you think about moccasins and things like that, where it conducted the energy from the earth, and it also absorbs excess energy in our bodies. But now we are so bombarded with excess energy just from devices, from EMFs, and there's just so much going on, like the Wi-Fi and signals and radiation. So it's extra important that we earth and get some grounding. So an alternative, if you are in a city, is you can get a grounding mat. You can actually purchase a grounding mat. And what that does is it goes into the grounding wire. It's basically like the plug is only the grounding wire, and it connects with that, which the grounding wire always goes into, like that part of the outlet always goes down into the earth, and it's used for grounding electricity. So it's important for electric devices as well, and we're electric, so it is important for us as well. One thing that I always just mention is just don't use it if there's lightning, because during that time, I don't know. That is always something that would scare me, because that is where it grounds the lightning. So that's the only time I would say be careful. But usually those devices, when you get it online, they will have information and a little instructional guide. Make sure if you do get a kit that it has a testing device. So they'll come with a little testing device that when you plug it into your outlet, it'll give you an orange light, and that orange light shows that outlet is okay. It gives it kind of the okay to use. So always make sure to get it with that. Sometimes I think they sell it without it. I think the Earthing movie might have a company that's affiliated with that. There's one that's a little bit better. Look at the reviews, check them out, and then just make sure that it has like the full kit. Sometimes they'll even send a book with it about earthing, which is kind of cool. So I definitely suggest doing that. But again, there is definitely an alternative if you are in the city and you're not able to do that on actual earth. Keep in mind too, if you are to go out in earth, you can pretty much use any area on the earth, and that includes sand at the beach, anything that there's no barrier between your feet and the earth. So that can mean sand, it can mean dirt, it can mean grass, like anything that you are able to access the earth from. And number 4, swimming in the ocean. So swimming, if you can access the ocean, is incredible. First of all, you will get a lot of negative ions, which is very, very healing. It's just something that nature often gives off and is very healing for the body. It can help your circadian rhythm as well. It calms your nervous system. It's very cleansing. The salt water is incredibly cleansing, and it's very calming for your well-being. So definitely something that I highly recommend. It kind of also impacts you just by the view of the water and the sound and the smell. So it kind of has all of that, which we talked about with the nature walks. So swimming in the ocean, having that salt water, that purification is incredible. If you do not have access to that, what you can do is take a salt bath. If you have access to a bath. I actually do not. I wish I had a bath, but I don't. So if you don't have a bath, I actually recommend pink Himalayan salt. It's really purifying. It has a lot of minerals, so you can use that. And if you don't have a bath, then you can also use it as a scrub. You could put it with oil and use it as a scrub. Go gentle because it depends on how rough it's cut. But I also have seen bars of Himalayan salt, which is really cool. So they have these bars and you basically use it almost like a bar soap. But again, be careful because sometimes the way it dissolves, it starts to get a little bumpy. So you just want to make sure that you're smooth on your skin. Sometimes I would just put a little bit of that salt on my hand and then use whatever's on my hand to rub it on. Like if it's kind of dissolved like salt on my hand, like if I would lick it, it would be salty and I wouldn't recommend that. Then you can use that and put it on your body and you'll feel it. It has like a different feel to it. So that is an alternative if you are not able to get to nature by yourself directly. So those are my 4 suggestions on how you can harness nature to help your fertility and overall health. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are enjoying my episodes, please subscribe and review so other people can find it. And you can always reach out to me on Instagram at the Wholesome Lotus Fertility. You can DM me. I get a lot of DMs from my listeners and I always love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in today and have a beautiful day. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.